Go back to where we left off with our points. Just to review once again, point number one was bubbling spring, the kidney point at the bottom of the foot. Point number two was happy calm, the liver point between the big toe and the second toe in the dorsal surface of the foot between the first and second metatarsals. The third point was gallbladder 41. That was in the depression between the fourth and fifth metatarsal. And kidney 6, point number 4, it was in the depression just below the medial malleolus, little depression below the malleolus, medial, inside. Point number 5 was bladder 60, Kunlun Mountains. That is between the lateral malleolus and the Achilles tendon on the superior edge of the calcaneum. And I was mentioning earlier that that point is really good for back pain, and a lot of people tweak their back for whatever reason, and there can be weakness in this bladder meridian that contributes. The bladder has to do with our reserve of energy, and when we get run down or exhausted, and our reserves become compromised or diminished, we're more likely to have this low back problem. Also, lack of hydration. So one of the things that we can do that is most helpful for most back problems is simple hydration, to keep those discs nice and plumped up by hydrating properly. And when it's so hot, and if we're outside and we're perspiring, again, you're losing electrolytes and fluids, and they need to be replaced. And sometimes we're not so conscientious about doing that. I mentioned, the mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of each of these points. So now hopefully you've written those down as well. And the last one we did was spleen 6, the 3-yin crossing, which is the reunion point of the 3 yin meridians, thus its name, 3-yin crossing, of the lower leg, the kidney, liver, and spleen meridians. So at that point, they converge. And so you can strengthen and enhance, fortify the spleen, the kidney, and the liver in one fell swoop. A lot of people, we've been in clothes for a long time. People, they can get stuck in depression and self-pity and a poor me kind of syndrome. And this point is actually good for a person to get moving again. We can become kind of stagnant, physically stagnant by not going out and moving, but mentally and emotionally stagnant. And also because it is earth element, it's good for grounding, centering, and balancing. So those are the 6 points that we've gone through thus far. So we'll add to the mix today. So I hope you are becoming familiar with those points and have used them on yourself. That's the best way to begin, using finger pressure. But you can also do it on family members, husbands, kids, wives, daughters, sons, mothers, and fathers. It is helpful, but you have to first become familiar with them, sensitize your fingers to the points. We give the anatomical location, but ultimately you really have to palpate the point to feel the energy there. And it's going to feel like a little depression. Sometimes it'll feel like a little dampness over the point, and your finger will just kind of stick over the point. And as you become more familiar with it, you will feel it. You may feel a little zingy or a little electrical kind of feeling over the point. Of course, it's subtle, but for those of you who have that kind of sensitivity, it can be developed with training, but some of you may be already adept at that sensation. So Joe has a booklet that I did, and these points will be on there. So the new points that we're doing, we can put on the screen. We can actually put all of the points on. We may do that along the way. That gives you a kind of a visual of the point. Kidney 1, Bubbling Spring. This is a book that I wrote and that I use when I teach these points to nurses or massage therapists or a variety of people who are interested in their own personal health and well-being. There are 36 points in all. So point number 1, as we said, open spring. Point number 2, liver 3. It's, can people read that okay?
Yes.
Good. We'll just
yes, it's really good. Thank you.
This book is being redone. The pictures are okay, but they're not the best. I've redone it and changed it a little bit, but for now, this gives you the information. All right, next page, Joe, page 6. Gallbladder 41. Kidney 6, illuminated C. So if you want to write down, you may have been able to follow what I was saying, but if you want to look at the functions. On point number 3, the gallbladder 41 point, it says regulates and balances the liver and gallbladder and regulates the belt channel. That is, the belt channel is kind of like it sounds, but there are 8 extra meridians, and one of those 8 is called the belt channel, and it is around the waist. And for people who sometimes don't like to have things around their waist, they'll feel like it's uncomfortable, or it makes them, just makes them uncomfortable to have anything around their waist. And you may have experienced something like that, but that is an indication of imbalance in the belt channel. One of the 8 extra meridians. There are 12 basic meridians and 8 extra meridians that we can talk about along the way if you're so interested. I mentioned the lateral headaches. This is a good point for headaches as well, particularly if they're one-sided headaches. And the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects you can read there. Each of these points has a very particular personality, as I mentioned before, and each point does what no other point can do. It's good to have some understanding of each of these points, and they can be done in order that we're doing them from 1 to 36, and have a complete a treatment as a result, working on each of these points. There are hundreds of points. These are 36 that I selected based on my experience of 40 years of doing traditional Asian medicine. And they are particularly powerful points. They're known as command points, and they are usually from the knee to the toe and from the elbow to the fingertips. And that is the place where these command points are found. So it's the transition from yin to yang energy, and they command a particular strong energetic result. So kidney 6 we mentioned, and if you can go to the next page, there is bladder 60. I was talking about that earlier. A good point for any kind of back pain, particularly the sciatica and low back pain, but anywhere. This meridian runs from the inner canthus of the eye, around the back, down the spine, and to the little toe. There are 67 points in this meridian. It's the longest meridian in the body. And as I say, if we get run down, if we lose our capacity, reserve of energy and get run down, then we're more likely to have problems in our back, actually. So this is a good point to supplement the kidney energy, and particularly, as it says, on the mental emotional level, to relax the mind. Sometimes we get anxious. This is the bladder and the kidney share energy, and fear, anxiety, even paranoia can result when these meridians are out of balance. So it enhances emotional warmth. This is the fire point in the bladder meridian, and compassion. So as we know, fire has that capacity, loving kindness, compassion, warmth, and removes fear and paralysis. When our water becomes cold or frozen, it leads to paralysis, and we really can't move. We can't go forward in our life. So this, and our back is kind of like that, and it really stops us in our tracks. So this helps to move that energy. Spleen 6. Remember I said it's 3 anatomical inches from the malleolus, the largest hump there. If we were to put our bottom part of our fingers on that, and where the top is, that would be 3 anatomical inches. ACI stands for anatomical Chinese inch. You'll see the location, 3 ACI, 3 anatomical Chinese inches. Okay, and you can access that at your leisure. Let's go on to the next part. So leg 3 miles, the stomach point, you can see that if you were to run your finger up the edge of the tibia, that's the large bone there. The tibia is the larger bone. And where it begins to angle towards the fibula, which is the smaller bone, you're going to dive into a little hole there, or a little depression. And that is stomach 36. 3 ACI below or just lateral to the edge of the tibia. As it says, it regulates and strengthens and fortifies the spleen, harmonizes stomach. This is good for any kind of digestive problem. Sometimes kids have digestive problems, diarrhea, or all kinds of problems. Think of this point as harmonizing the stomach and tonifying the nutritive chi. Nutritive chi is that we absorb from our food, and that is what forms blood. It treats gastric pain, gastrointestinal problems in general, diarrhea, dysentery, dysmenorrhea, the stomach, and duodenal ulcers, stomach ache, vomiting, indigestion, knee and joint pain. So, you know, these points are good for the local areas where you find them. So this is at the knee, so it can help the knee and lower leg stiffness, pain, cramping, and fatigue. But it is called leg 3 miles because this also has a special kind of designation as a sea of energy. And the Chinese military would use this point to go the extra 3 miles when they were getting fatigued or tired from marching. They would sometimes moxa or stimulate this point. Moxa is applying heat, and heat can be energizing to the point. You can stimulate these points with the finger, as we're doing with the acupuncture needle, which is the strongest, and with heat. So any of those methods will stimulate the point. But this, as a sea of energy, is a very powerful point. And the mental, emotional, spiritual aspects, as it said, it brings about greater mental, emotional, and spiritual stability, revitalizes the energy at all levels, giving greater endurance and longevity. removes laziness, apathy, and despair, relieves anxiety, worry, depression, helps to get the person moving again, the get up and go point. Earth element is all about stability and groundedness. That's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. We have to be grounded and not let our energy rise up. And so, Tai Chi, these kinds of balancing things that bring our energy, ground us, and root us to the earth. So things that are helpful in grounding, there's a thing called grounding where we're walking barefoot on the ground, on the beach, those kinds of things, and absorbing the energy of the earth through our feet. I probably mentioned before that we tend to be cut off because we use rubber soles, the sole shoes that insulate us from that natural energy of the earth. So walking barefoot or walking with leather bottom or cotton bottomed shoes is fine because that doesn't cut us off from the energy of the earth. It's very unnatural. We weren't designed to have rubber soles, and it actually has a very powerful effect when we walk naturally barefoot, or as I say, with leather does not obstruct that flow of energy into the body, nor does cotton. So you can wear other kinds of shoes besides that occasionally. That would be helpful. Any question about anything so far? Okay, gallbladder 34, young mound spring. Just like the Dharma, we can hear the Dharma, but unless we practice it, we really don't get a result. So knowing about these points, and I think taking care of yourself is going to be important now and in the future as we're confronted by things that we've never been confronted before and at a very rapid pace. Our bodies were not used to this confrontation. An assault on the air, the water, the food, all these different kinds of things. So energetically, to be able to take care of ourselves in a particular kind of way, such as this, will really help now and in the future. So once you have a feeling for this, you can also, help others as well with the problems that they'll be facing. So gallbladder 34, young mound spring. It's in the depression anterior and inferior to the head of the fibula. So we said if you walk your finger up along the tibia, that large bone, on the lateral side, you'll hit the gallbladder. If you go up a little bit more, and between that other bone, which is the fibula, there's a depression between the fibula and the tibia. See if you can find that point. The description of the picture there shows that.
Lama, it looks to me, and now I can't see the top part of that page, but it looks like that's the same point as like 3 miles.
It's more posterior to it. So if you'll bring that that picture down a little bit more, Joe, so we can see stomach 36.
Oh, okay.
So it does look that way, but actually the gallbladder point is a little bit higher and posterior. So if you feel the joint, the space between the fibula and the tibia.
Yes,
There's a difference. So as you come along the tibia, on the outside of the tibia, you'll come to the head of the tibia.
Okay.
And then further up and to the rear of that point, you will come between you'll still feel the fibula, the other bone that's in back of the tibia, to the side of the tibia, is a different space.
Okay.
So it's the stomach 36 is anterior, is forward, right along the tibia. The gallbladder point is higher and in back of that point.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. That helps. That really helps.
So in the depression, anterior and inferior to the head, it says anterior to the head of the fibula. So that's the smaller bone, but it is posterior to the fibula. I mean to the tibia. Sorry, I'm confusing you. Posterior to the tibia, anterior to the fibula, in that intersection between those two bones, those two large bones of the leg. The larger bone, the tibia, and the smaller bone, the fibula. So move your finger around there and get familiar with the territory. So this point is in the depression anterior, which means in front of the fibula, and inferior to the head. So as you go between those two bones, your finger will just automatically dive into that point. As high as you can go between those, the fibula and the tibia, but be able to feel both those bones. And that's where the point is. The stomach 36 point is below that and more anterior against the tibia. So again, you're getting a little bit of an anatomy lesson here as well, anterior and posterior and inferior. When we say inferior, it means away from the heart. Or distal also means away from the heart. So this particular point regulates and tonifies liver and gallbladder. Our gallbladders really also take a beating, and it is one of the most common surgeries, abdominal surgeries, is removing gallbladders because of gallstones, or the gallbladder loses its capacity, its astringent capacity to move bile into the small intestine for digestion. So this point helps to activate the gallbladder's job, which is to move the bile. And bile is a very important substance. It goes unrecognized a lot in Western medicine, but it is a very important substance for the digestion of fats in particular, but for our digestion in general. So this regulates and tonifies the liver and gallbladder. So is gallbladder yin or yang organ?
I think it's yang.
I think it's yang.
Yes, it is the bladder. So that means it's empty and it holds things. Yin organs are solid. So the liver is seen as solid. Gallbladder, it holds fluids, moves things through it. So that's right, it's yang. And it benefits the joints, strengthens the knees and sinews. Sinews are the ligaments and tendons that often in Chinese medicine use the word sinews. We don't use that so much, but it has to do with connective tissue, ligaments and tendons in particular. Facilitates and regulates the flow of qi, alleviates pain, clears heat and dampness. It treats liver and gallbladder diseases, biliary tract problems, that's gallbladder problems, bile, the movement of bile, headache, hypertension, acid reflux, lower back pain, sciatica, special point for tendons and ligaments. So anytime, this is, as it says, a special point for tendons and ligaments anywhere in the body. So if you have a problem with your ankle, a knee, hip, back. You would consider this point, shoulders, any joint. This helps to bring vitality, and it gives the tendons and ligaments their flexibility and renews their capacity. Sometimes our ligaments and tendons become too tight and we can't move our joints properly. This helps to nourish and with blood, and helps us articulate the joints better, move better, have more flexibility. And from the mental, emotional, spiritual aspects, as it is said, it improves upright judgment. So we said that each of these organs has a function, a job in this kingdom of our body, mind, spirit. And in this kingdom, the gallbladder is the official of upright judgment and decision making. And it works with the liver, the official of planning, to help us have great clarity and to see. The eyes are also the organs associated with the wood element, liver and gallbladder. So when we say vision, as I think I mentioned with liver 3, the second point we did, it has to do with our vision. And that means insight. It means the capacity to know where we're going and to plan. And the gallbladder works in conjunction with that to have integrity, to have upright judgment and decision-making, ruling like a judge on the bench, for what is right and moral and ethical. It gives us that capacity for decision-making. It brings mental clarity, emotional balance, spiritual insight, and awareness. Pacifies resentment, anger, and irritability. So we want to have a healthy body, mind, and spirit as we progress on our spiritual path. And all of these points help to bring balance. And I'm sure, I have had my share of what could have been fatalities, both with a heart attack and stroke. But I think due to some of the practices that I've done has helped me recover, certainly, from these incidences remarkably well. And Tai Chi, in terms of the stroke, helped regain my physical capacity. Again, you know that I couldn't move my arm, or right leg, couldn't wiggle a toe or move my finger. I was totally paralyzed on my right side. But the Tai Chi and other exercises helped to relearn these functions more readily. And using the acupuncture and these points to move the chi and move the blood helped me overcome some of the deficits that are often experienced with those occurrences. So the next point, we can move on to the next page. Point number 9 is also a liver point. This is on the medial side, crooked spring, as it is called. So the medial surface of the lower leg, distal and medial to the protuberance of the tibia. Remember, the tibia is the large bone of the lower leg. And where we were at the lateral side, now we're on the medial side, on the big toe side. So in the same way that we kind of walked our fingers up to stomach 36, we'll walk our fingers up the medial side of that bone to liver 8. Point number 9, which is liver 8, crooked spring. So the medial surface of the lower leg, distal and medial to the protuberance of the tibia. So you can see that there is the head of the tibia, protuberance, the head of the tibia. And as you walk your finger up and make that turn underneath the head of the tibia, that is where the point lies. And it is often tender. It could very well be tender. Remember, these points are bilateral, so you can palpate it on both sides. So the functions for point number 9, regulates and tonifies the liver, drains liver heat. So when we say drains liver heat, the liver is a very sensitive organ to both our emotional, particular anger and frustration. It heats up the liver, but so do rich foods and excess, like alcohol, that's like throwing fuel on the fire, will create liver heat. And you know, when people drink too much, they may flush, their face may become red. That heat rises in the body just like it does anywhere else. So this helps to drain liver heat, to move it, enriches the blood, regulates menstruation, moves blood, stasis is stagnation. Anytime you have pain, you have blood stasis, you have stagnation. It strengthens the knee and connective tissue. It treats hernia, urinary tract infection, urogenital pain. Withdrawal symptoms from drugs and alcohol, arthritic pain, stiffness and swelling of the knee and thigh. On the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects, it's helpful when the body, mind, emotion, spirit become too rigid, brittle, and unbending. It pacifies fear, anger, irritation, indecision, stagnation when in a rut. Promotes new growth. You know, we talk about this as wood element, and in the spring, we see the new shoots coming up in the springtime. But mentally and emotionally, and in particular, mentally, it gives us insight. It gives us greater clarity. We can see more clearly. So it gives us this, we're looking at new growth, like inspiration, insight, patience, perseverance to reach the goal, the ability to be flexible in body and mind, and yielding, but steady in one's path. So just like the new shoot in spring coming up, going towards the sun, it is in the same way our plans and decision-making allow us to carry out the plan, our mission in life. All right, any question about stomach 36, point number 7, 8, or 9? Does everyone feel like they found a point or points?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes for liver 8, yes for gallbladder 36. A little confusing, the difference between that and BI leg 3 miles.
Okay. Again, if your leg 3 miles is more anterior, and gallbladder 34 is more posterior and higher in the joint between the fibula and tibia.
Yeah, gallbladder 34. It seems like a no-brainer. There's that.
Yeah, there's a big hole there.
Yes. Yes. And so the other one, in terms of common English, sorry, lower and toward the back of the leg.
Which we're talking about? Which point?
To go from 34 to I guess it's ST36,
Yeah.
3-leg.
Yeah, so yes, you'll come down and forward.
Oh, forward. Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
It can be kind of ropey in there. There can be tendons and ligaments and things like that, but follow the bone right where it begins to curve.
Yeah.
And gallbladder 34 is higher and in back of that, posterior, more towards. Yes.
Okay. Right. Yeah. I feel a different depression
Yes.
at 34. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When I'm teaching this, often I'm, in a class, so I can palpate the point, and I usually do it vigorously so a person knows where that point is on themselves when I palpate it. And we can also, at that point, kind of mark them out so a person can see a little mark there and be able to assess it more directly. But we don't have that opportunity in this situation. But I think with the practice, you'll find the points.
Yes.
But that's why I want to know if there's any other questions. So thank you, Larry, for asking that question, because I think that probably other people have that same question. Because they're close, but they're not the same.
Yeah. I think I found it. And
the actual points I may have mentioned are about the size of a half a grain of rice. And when we're doing acupuncture, you want to be right on that. But when we're stimulating the point with finger pressure, anywhere from the size of a dime to a size of a quarter, you're still going to affect the chi and vitality in that area. So you have a little more leeway.
So kind of if you're in the neighborhood pretty close and you're pretty vigorous, you're gonna hit it. Sounds like
the channel, absolutely.
Great. Yeah. Well, I feel the energy. I feel the energy rising from especially from 34.
Yeah, gallbladder 34. That is as I say, some of these are like master points, and they have a particular, a special energy, and 34 is one of those. It's a special point for ligaments and tendons.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll do one more on this page. We have kidney 10. This one is probably a little more difficult. Again, it's on the medial side of the popliteal crease. Popliteal crease is the line, the knee, where the joint, where we bend. So that popliteal crease is where the knee bends on the back side. And this is in the popliteal crease between the tendons semimembranosus and semitendinosus. So there are two large tendons. When the leg is flexed, that means when it's extended out. Just as you see the picture there. As you palpate in back of the medial side, towards the big toe side, if you extend your leg out, you will feel two tendons, the semimembranosus and semitendinosus. And if you bend the leg a little bit, you should be able to feel those two tendons. If you have it extended straight out, it may not be as apparent, but it is more on the medial side. You'll feel one large tendon, and then there's a very large tendon, even more medial to that, more towards the center of the popliteal crease. But this is towards the edge, and feel those two tendons. Really get a feel for that anatomy. The one large tendon you'll definitely be able to feel. And then there's a very close to it is the second one, and the point lies right between those two tendons. So you're going to become familiar with your anatomy a little bit and those two tendons. So one would go between the tendons, and you don't have to apply a great deal of pressure, but to just go in between those tendons and against towards the bone. So this helps to tonify the kidneys and clears heat. Dispels dampness. So dampness is a situation that occurs, for example, bladder infections, we would say is a dampness. It's a damp. It's often associated with bladder infections. Dampness is often associated with bacterial infections and with candida as well. So people who have candidiasis may have a vaginal discharge or a variety of expressions that candidiasis, that is considered dampness in Chinese medicine. And it can be exacerbated, as you probably know, with carbohydrates and sweets. You're feeding the fungus associated with the candida. Candida is a particular fungus. So it enriches yin and regulates menstruation, enhances urination, strengthens the knee, treats hernia, urogenital pain, dysuria, vaginal discharge, genital itching. Genital itching is also a sign of candidiasis, fungal overgrowth. Anytime, as you probably again know, that anytime that you take an antibiotic, you need to take a probiotic. You need to take the friendly flora to replace the bacteria, friendly bacteria that's being destroyed by the antibiotics. Antibiotics are used frequently, and it's not unusual for women in particular to take an antibiotic and get a yeast infection. That follows pretty quickly. But to take the probiotics, you can take it in pill form, but I generally recommend to take real food. So any fermented kinds of food, like sauerkraut, like kimchi, like kefir, or a variety of other kinds of miso. Any fermented natural food is better than a pill because these are live cultures. And in a pill that's been who knows how long on some shelf, it can lose its potency. They say there's billions and billions of these friendly flora in a capsule, but over time I'm not so sure. But we know that taking a fermented food will be rich in the probiotics necessary for the proper functioning of your digestive system. And antibiotics and steroids and a variety of other foods and medicines will destroy that friendly flora. And you've probably heard a lot about leaky gut and those kinds of things. Those are all a result of the body's wear and tear on the digestive lining. And there are small spaces, this so-called leaky gut, where substances will get into the bloodstream and create inflammation and a variety of secondary problems. And leaky gut often goes unrecognized. So using the friendly flora and eating real food, staying away from the medications such as antibiotics and steroids, which destroy or disrupt at least the friendly flora of your gut, is helpful. But taking probiotics on a regular basis is important to gut health.
Lama, in addition to the fermented foods, good quality organic grass-fed yogurt, is that fairly effective for probiotics?
Yeah, yogurt is rich in probiotics. Yes, it is.
Good.
And yeah, you don't have to have it sugared. If you'll just eat it plain, I mean, most of these yogurts that have the jam at the bottom of it is more like a ice cream or frozen yogurt. That is not what we're talking about.
Right.
And you can use goat yogurt as well. There's lots of yogurts being made with nut butters and other kinds of things that are non-dairy too. If you have a problem with dairy, yogurts or kefir or those kinds of things, you can use coconut yogurts are fine. It's the fermentation process that we're looking for to bring the friendly flora to your gut. And if dairy is a problem for you, often people do better with goat milk than they do cow's milk. It doesn't have the same characteristics. But as you mentioned, try to get grass-fed dairy that's not shot up with the same thing we're talking about with hormones and antibiotics and other things which you're ingesting. So now more than ever, we're finding problems with bacteria that are antibiotic resistant, which is really going to be bad news in the future. So we want to protect our bodies and our foods, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food, is still correct. So on the mental emotional level, when we talk about our point number 10, this particular point, yin valley, the kidneys are the most yin of all of the organs, cooling, soothing, relaxing. It brings a still, cool, quiet, peaceful, tranquil, and calm influence, revitalizes the spirit and clears the mind, a soothing and restful energy to those who are exhausted and fatigued, or running on empty, reduces fear, phobias, worry, and mood swings, and pacifies the feeling of being inundated, out of control, or going under, like they're drowning. Okay, we will stop there. Any final questions or comments? I'm willing to go through as much of this as you're willing to hear. Hopefully it's helpful. We can go through the entirety of these points if you wish. I think it is of value, and if we're going to do really to have an understanding of these golden 8-petalled lotus of Asian medicine, understanding the energy of the body, these meridians or energetic systems, I think is going to be helpful to you. But if it's not, let me know.
The pictures help locate the points. Thank you.
Yes, that is good. I thank Joe for putting them up for us.
Thanks,
And
Joe.
we have all of them online now, so that's good.